Welcome, seekers and visionaries, to Oracle Mountain Chats. Here on this sacred virtual peak, we gather a space for oracles to share their wisdom, their visions, and their craft. It all began with a calling I could not ignore. One day, within a vision, I held this conch shell in my hands, and as I blew its resonant note into the world, I felt its vibration ripple across unseen realms. It was a summons, a signal to fellow oracles scattered near and far. I saw that we were on a mountain, vast and towering, reaching into the heavens. At its base, the world buzzed with life, people moving, creating, searching. Yet at the summit, there was stillness, clarity, and a circle of light. There, oracles stood, their gaze focused both outward and inward. They spoke of the energies they felt, the shifts they saw, and the whispers of the unseen. They weren't above the world, they were its witnesses and its guides. From this vision, OracleFest was born, a celebration of connection, insight, and the timeless wisdom that flows through us all. The message was clear. It is time. Time to meet upon this sacred mountain, to share what we hear, feel, and see. Time to bring the wisdom of the divine to a world that is yearning for its guidance. Through OracleFest, we've created a movement of community, all yearning to empower their own inner oracle. And here in Oracle Mountain Chats, we bring that spirit into a more intimate space. This is where the oracles gather to reflect, exchange ideas, and to explore what wishes to come through in the moment. This mountain is more than stone and sky. It is a meeting place of the realms, a threshold between seen and unseen, known and unknown. Here we gather as oracles to share the visions Spirit whispers to us, to speak of the energy currents flowing through nature and humanity, and to help guide those who seek answers in a world that often feels lost. So grab a seat, breathe in the mountain air, and join us as we begin today's chat. Whether it's an energy reading, a conversation about our craft, our path, or simply sharing a perspective on the world below, this is where we wait for more oracles to join us on the mountain. What wisdom will the mountain bring us today? Let's find out together. Step into this sacred space where the wisdom of the ages converges with the questions of the present. Okay, well, welcome back. Here we find ourselves on Oracle Mountain, and this time joined by the lovely David Bouchard, who I have had the pleasure of connecting with, I'd say, for longer amounts of time than we anticipate every time we meet. So I've set aside some time today, but I know it's quite early for David as well. So it may be that we need to take a coffee break or go back to sleep at some point. So this is David Bouchard. He is...
Good morning, world.
Good morning, world. Yes. I love the idea that this goes over the whole world. I think that's such a powerful and beautiful thing we have access to in these times. And would you like to introduce yourself? I think it's very interesting that you used to be a school principal, and so you're very fascinated by education. That speaks to me in some kind of way. So if people only know you as an author, I think that's quite an important aspect of who you are, that you love teaching.
There's some truth to that. And teaching is not really what I love, Kate. What I do is I really do love people, and children are a big part of that. So that really shouldn't be surprising. No, I guess I'm all of that. I'm an educator, but I'm also a poet, and I'm one who has been directed by my disability. I have a memory retention issue and dyslexia. And that means that I've struggled with a number of things academically and in my life. And it also means that I've been privy to a few things that others have not been. And for those who don't know, when you have a disability, new doors open. And it's just the way things are. So I was forced to think outside of the box as a student and as an adult. And that's my forte. So when I question absolutely everything, and I've been left with a firm set of beliefs at my age, and if there's anything good about aging, and there aren't that many, one of them is finding through living what you feel of the world. You know what your beliefs are. Do you believe in our system? Do you believe in do you believe in God? Do you believe in religion? Do you believe in, so you kind of establish all of those things, and then at some point you settle down and say, good, that's how I feel, that's what I've learned, and that's what I believe. And then you're able to share those beliefs and your learnings. And not everybody accepts them, and that's fine. At least they've been privy to them. And it's the kind of thing that I like to think I can do for students. Privy them to ideas that are outside of the box that they may not be hearing in school. Namely, kids, don't trust the system. Don't trust our school system. They will tell you that to succeed in life, you have to have 3 degrees, and you should look like that, you should dress like that, and you should live in a house like that. And I know now at this age that you shouldn't be looking up there for success. You should be looking within. Every one of you, every one of us, we have a gift, and we should be building our lives on those gifts, and that really determines success when you no longer exist here on this platform.
Absolutely. Oh, I have so many things that I would love to say about that because I feel very similar. I was one of these ask why all the time kids, so much so they put me in a special class with other ask why kids.
Good girl.
And I was really questioning a lot of the ways that we learned, since I was very blessed to have a bit of an alternative education at some point in my life. But then going back into I would say mainstream system in high school, I was so confused as to how this was working for everyone seemingly, or not, as I would see with my fellow classmates. And yeah, I love the idea that actually we look at our gifts and who we are innately as beings, and get to explore outward from that. And I'm sure it must have been very challenging for you then, being a school principal, if this was part of your beliefs and understanding. Was there a part of you that was wanting to change things from within when you were?
Oh, Kate, always.
Yeah.
Always. I watched my own son work his way through the school system that was not meant for him, because my son is a non-reader. His gifts are other. So my little boy, who played AAA hockey, gold level soccer, provincial wrestling champion at the age of 6, captain of this team and captain, my little guy really had this intense hatred for, dislike of, negative response to his school years, and his memories of school will always be that, because I was unable to change things. So for the life of me, I worked at changing things, and our systems, I think educational, financial, are so intact, and no one seems to be excited about change. I mean, you've heard that before. Change is one of the hardest things to overcome. Our school system was created in 120 years ago, and it hasn't changed our way of teachings. And so it was very hard for me, and it was really hard for me to see students who should have been directed based on their gifts, judged and graded on some spectrum that didn't exist for them. So I can honestly say that if I succeeded in anything, it was to pull 1 or 2 or 3 out of that thing, and to give them a chance by knowing that their principals supported them, and by saying to their teachers, I won't allow you to write that way. No, that report card will not suffice. I want to hear something about who they are, not about who they're not. So the answer to that, Kate, is that I did my best. And you find as you get older that you just really can't change the world. And so you have to learn to be content with one little thing at a time. I guess it's like cruelty to animals, for that matter. When you see, and you're seeing more and more of that on various platforms on the internet, of how people can be relentlessly cruel, and you shake your head, you say, oh, I can't stand this any longer. And I'm learning at this point that if I could just deal with one or two, that's that much better. And if somehow or another I could convince the world to just do one or two, and that relates to obviously cruelty to animals, but also relates to loving one another, and it relates to education, and it relates to relationships. And so, yeah, as I've gotten older, I realize that I can't do all that I'd like to have done, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. And there must also be like a part of you that has to reflect and celebrate those few that you've been able to touch. I'm sure it's many more than just a few, but
A few is a good term, Kate. And yes, yes, absolutely. I follow a few of these kids now, these adults, on social media, and I see the successes they're achieving. And every time I see it, I just tap myself on the back and say, "You know, you're a piece of that." And I do. So, absolutely to that. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, it stands out as interesting to me because I was speaking to a couple of the OracleFest speakers yesterday, and some a similar thread came up, which is that there is so much a lot of people in the world wish was different, and that's something that a lot of people can agree on. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people can agree on how they wish things were different, and yet so many people are afraid of change, or I think maybe not finding answers or solutions that would make sense or feel reasonable at the time, based on the current kind of construct. So it requires quite a lot of outside the box thinking to
Well,
get our way out of some of these things.
it absolutely does, and the amount of courage that it requires is also almost unachievable when you think of families who have mortgages and
Mhm.
children to care for, and sometimes special needs to care for, and then you look at the head of these families and say to she or he or she or she, the best thing for you to do is stop all of these plans. Stop fighting, stop swimming upriver.
Mm.
Turn and let the river take you, because there are those who will guide you, who will take you where you want to be. And that's a real challenge for folks. When I say to people, um, as a school principal, I had a 10-year plan, 5 1-year plan. I had daily plans. I had objectives. I had physical. I had educational objectives. And when it dawned on me that there was a better way to go, I scrapped all of that. And today in my life is zero. No plans. I get into the river and I let the river take me where I'm supposed to go, rather than. And if you can convince kids to say to students, when you spend your whole life swimming upriver, I've got 1 degree, I've got 2 degrees, okay, I've got this big house, I've got these 3 cars, and you stop swimming and you look back and you think, should I have done that? And the answer is no, you definitely shouldn't have. Instead of fighting your way upriver, you should turn and you should go with that river, because you have, each and every one of you, inherent in your DNA. In your DNA, genes of those who loved you, who will guide you. And it's a real bonus if ever you come to know their names. I believe firmly that they go on living as long as you can speak their names. So I say Josette Carbonneau, always Jeanne Charbonneau, Jeanne Charbonneau. I think it is she who's primarily responsible for the direction that I am on, and I do everything I can to recognize and keep her living. And
Mm.
it's amazing how many students don't know. In fact, a lot of adults don't know. I talked to them about that aha moment when you don't know why. I saw the mountains and I don't know what drew me to them, but something out there grabbed me. That I don't know why moment. That's when I kick in and say, you don't know why? Well, let me tell you why. You have something within you that sparked a little fire and said, hey, look at that again. Just stay there for a minute. And it's that genetic memory that wants more of something that they or someone in their lines had. And that's really hard to. Um, well, in fact, I should say it's probably easier to do with students than it is with adults,
Yeah.
because kids tend to be more creative and more wide open. But it's hard to say to adults who are trying to, go that way. Well, David, no way. I've got a career ahead of me. I've got to make so much money for my students, for their, and it's too bad. But it's the way of the world.
It's strange. As you're speaking, I mean, I can think of so many examples of conversations that are similar. We go, oh, what would be the way to share? Actually, it's more fun to go downstream. It's actually easier to.
Oh,
It's way easier, and we yeah, get to enjoy our lives. And so that thing that they're worried about, which is maybe short-term discomfort or challenging, maybe I think a lot of it can come down to not feeling belonging in community. And so social shifts changing. If you go a different way, then what does that mean for how you are supported by community? Yeah, it's strange to try and describe. Actually, I think it's much more comfortable. You can't get
Oh,
off
it
of the lazy
is.
river track once you're on it, the actually going with the flow. Well, this is just so much more easeful, right? And it's tough to question, but maybe very easy until you do it because you're so
And,
committed.
and for those who believe in God, for those who believe in God, whatever, whether it's God or Muhammad, or if it's, you can see that at the end of that tunnel, you are going to run into that God, and God will say, "Did you use the gifts I gave you?" Well, no, I tried to build my life on my ego or on my, and at some point that would come up. Those of us who believe less of that and understand that we are all one family, that's where our roots lie. We all come from Mother Earth. When we die, we go back to Mother Earth. And if Father Sky didn't exist, we wouldn't be here because we needed that oxygen. Those of us who believe in Mother Earth, Father Sky, Grandfather Sun, Grandmother Moon, and of course the best of all of them is all of our relations, the stars, where we will one day find ourselves with them in that massive, massive world. For us, it's a little easier. It's a little more comfortable. It's a matter of introducing these ideas, and I do that through my writings, Kate. So, my most recent book is called. One of my most recent books is called "Meet Your Family," where I introduce my readers to that, I guess, indigenous spirituality of who we are. So, not so much around Creator or around God, but rather our family here and how we are all tied to the world around us and how we have to take care of one another, and the right reasons for being, which are not biblical or in the Quran. They're in nature. We know that. So it's a bit of a challenge, but as I say, as I get older, just one little thing at a time. And when I manage to succeed with one accomplishment, with being kind to one person who didn't expect it, who didn't need it, who didn't, that that for me is what carries me and what will gives me the satisfaction that I need in life. Just one person at a time, and if we all just one person at a time, it'll be a better place.
Has anyone ever told you that you have this ability when you speak to move people to tears? Because it's the second time I've cried. You
I
talk,
think you're a big mush. I think you're just a
I,
big mush.
both things can be true. Both things can be true.
Yes, they sure can be.
It's
Okay,
such a
oh
beautiful
man,
idea.
I can only imagine, Kate, how for someone like you, when you find yourself looking at animals that are lost or abused, or where do you go but tears?
And I have to have a bit of, I'm also particularly moved by children, as I know you are as
Oh,
well. And
street people, I don't even start to go there because that
it's,
just rips me to pieces. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I have this experience often where I go, okay, am I void of feeling? Because there's actually so much to be felt, but sometimes it's difficult to even get to the state where I'm feeling because to allow myself to really sense into the largeness, the darkness of some of these issues that affect especially our more vulnerable and our children and our babies and our
oh,
animals,
absolutely, yeah.
and our plants are all of our world space, all of our lands, as well. It really deeply moves me. And I also have this sense that there are certain aspects and issues that are like charged for certain people. So when I'm particularly moved by something in a really deep way, I go, that is something wanting to move through me. And I need
Oh,
to be a
yeah.
part of that, even in the ripple effect, but sometimes in a larger way as well. I've had this very large vision about an orphanage, but less so that, more so like a system helping helping Madagascar actually is where it is. I've never been. It's very bizarre, but this incessant vision and dream and it won't stop. And I think a lot of people have that and they feel very intimidated or scared by the largeness of the issue and then their being as one human, but we are guided by like all of the things that are actually leading, like your great it was great grandmother, right? As she guides you through. It's interesting. My father just came downstairs here, and I have been connected to his uh, grandfather a lot, our great grandfather,
Hmm.
who was Scottish and a minister and very focused on education as well. So I feel a certain kind of kinship with him. And I was walking around this area where he used to be the chaplain at a fort, and I felt him sorting through his thoughts and trying to clear it because he was listening to everyone during the wars about what was going on for them emotionally and spiritually, which was very challenging. And he said, we're living kind of similar times here. It's that you have to take these walks and clear your mind, otherwise you can't be present with each person. And how simple it is that, okay, that's
And
obviously a practice, otherwise the weight of the world
yeah.
is on our shoulders and we're not able to move under all that pressure. So I do cry often, but I try to also charge it into something where possible.
And it's and I can't. That crying is probably a good first step, isn't it? It tells
Always.
you, yeah, this
This
is
is
a
important.
focus.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I guess if another one of those advantages of being somewhat older is you get a chance to see the world. And on one of my tours to India, I was given the opportunity to go and spend some time in a jugi. And a jugi is like a shanty town for Indian people.
Hmm.
Maybe 5,000 people live in one city block, and they live under cardboard walls and tin roofs, and there's no plumbing or water. There's open sewers running down the streets, and yet they're clean and they're happy. And you shake your head, and that's right across the street from what could easily be a Taj Lake Palace or Taj
Hmm.
Palace of some sorts. And so, you don't really have to be a rocket scientist to see the discrepancies in some of the work that we have to put in to make things right. And you're right to say that you can't do it all, but I think one little thing at a time helps. And it's
Absolutely.
not always money. Of course, money is nice, but it has to do with a little love as well. Just sharing a little love, sharing maybe food. And I think we can all think of one example of where we had excessive food and we gave it to someone who did not have it. A smile that we gave to someone who didn't return it because they're just so unaccustomed to have people smiling and being nice to them. And so as you get older, you see just maybe one thing that I can look back and say, yeah, good, good. I always carry dog treats out in the South Side. I always carry dog treats in my pocket. And whenever I see a dog on the street, they think of me as uncle. So I say, does uncle have something special for you? And I get the most wonderful responses. So that when I went to pick something up the other day, and there was a woman who came out of her house with a dog that looked maybe like a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and she had him tied on his leash. And I said, "Could I offer your dog a little bit of this treat? It's from the butcher's. It's a good, healthy treat." And she said, "Oh, I don't think he'll take it." And I said, "I'm uncle. Would you have a little bit of my treat?" And he kind of worked his way over, and they went off. And he did his pee, and they came back. And this time he's dragging her to get towards me, uncle. And she was not happy about any of this. However, he did get a second treat, and he got a scratch behind the ears and a smile in his eyes saying, "Hey, hey, I'm here with you." And, that little thing carried me for a week, just that memory of the look that he gave me, that I gave him, that said, "We're here together. I care for you. We're all one family." And it's so unfortunate. I don't think you're getting a fair shake in life. How many people do you see now that are rescuing animals? I think it's just wonderful. And how do we rescue people? Because every time you drive down the street and you see them there, you know that they're somebody's son or somebody's daughter or somebody's uncle. And
Hmm.
I struggle with that. And yeah.
Yeah. There's something very sweet also about the recognition that it doesn't need to be large scale, but these small scale
Mm-hmm.
moments add up because it speaks to also a collective voice, a collective
Mm-hmm.
mind and heart.
Mm-hmm.
And that if every person allows a little bit more feeling into their heart and a little bit more connection, maybe in these unexpected ways or unusual, unconventional to them ways,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can even think of, I was in high school, my dad picks me up from the downtown area, and I'm sitting with some strange person, some stranger to me,
Mm-hmm.
And I jump in the car and he goes, Kate, who was that? And I
Yeah.
go, oh, that guy's name. I think it was John. And he goes, well, did you know him? And I said, well, he sat down on the bench next to me.
Yeah. I didn't know him then, but I do now.
Said, are you
Yeah.
sure that's a good idea? And I said, no harm came to me. And it was perfectly pleasant conversation. And so
Yeah.
he just shakes his head and go, okay, this is the kind of daughter I've got to deal with.
Yeah. Our Father who art in heaven, you bet.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah, but it is those little moments. I mean, I still think of that moment even today. That was, half my life ago.
ago, yeah.
Yeah, and who knows what anyone's up to these
We
days.
try to put ourselves more and more into positions that will allow us to have those experiences come our way. It's true. I know.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we apply our individual strengths and gifts to doing that. And so a number of the books that I've written, Kate, focus on issues that people might question. And there's no doubt in my mind they come from genetic direction. I've
Mm.
had an elder once ask me, how do you know that? And I said, oh, my grandma. He said, oh, what was her name? And I said, Jean Charbonneau. Where does she live? I said, oh, she's been dead for 83 years. Oh, that lack of understanding. So no,
Mm.
I've written books about a wonderful story about barnyard animals, how barnyard animals have been neglected and are not what they once were. So it speaks to how we used and abused, in your case, Kate, the Scottish Highland cow. You'll see me in the Highlands near a slough if I am lucky, standing knee deep in the water, and you'll think I'm killing time. I'll be chewing on my cud, something sweet and quite familiar, staring blankly into space, simply waiting for the rain. In the reeds that sway beside me to the tall grass on the hillside, all around roaming dark clouds, no need for me to seek out cover. I'm equipped like so few others for the rain and bitter cold wind. So the Scottish Highland cow will talk through me, saying, "This is who I am," and yet now I'm almost extinct.
Mhm.
And then certain goats, and then certain the donkey. The donkey. There are donkey sanctuaries scattered all across the UK because since the invention of tractor and various machines, no needed.
Mhm.
So what they do, they just put them out in the pasture. They being we as a species, and not caring for our fellow species, and it's more than sad. It's just ugly. So I wrote how we abuse these, who's abused more than ever from the, and my message, if you're wondering, ask the Virgin Mary for her story. How all of the animals around us. Ask her which one she prefers, and her answer, I don't doubt it, will for me, if I am worthy, be a place beyond the clouds. And so all of a sudden I get a chance to express some of these feelings through books that will reach people that I've never known, that I'll never know, but it maybe sparks something. So I can honestly say that I've written a number of books that I don't think people really think about when they read them, and then when it's done, maybe there's a spark there.
That's what drew me to film years ago was this idea that everyone walks into a film or a movie theater and they leave and they have this emotional charge, this change or this idea
Hmm.
or just a moment of joy or something like that. And yeah, that must be such you I imagine, do you hear about people's reactions and are they surprising to you as well sometimes what people see from what you've written?
I hear a ton of people's reactions, and often they reach out and they try to use me in a way that will accentuate the efforts that they're making in life. And I just see this sitting over here. I wrote a book called The Seven Sacred Teachings,
Hmm.
and it speaks to indigenous spirituality and how we believe that there's no need to talk to God or Creator or Allah, or just step outside and look at the sun and follow the sun and use your heart. And you'll learn from the sun. You'll learn humility and you'll learn honesty and you'll learn respect. So in this book, I did this. And I found myself being invited to jails, to various jails. So I did spend some time frankly in Ontario, in Kingston, duh,
Yes. Right around
and
me right now.
exactly,
Hmm.
and I guess probably the best of it was that there's a jail for under 21-year-old people who've been convicted of heinous crimes, and it's in Fort Francis. And they're small. They're all the inmates are all Ojibwa men, and they're supposed to be co-ed, but they couldn't do that. So and there's not a lot, by the way. The maximum number they have is 12. But they found that introducing these inmates to a world of spirituality that, for whatever their life challenges, they've never been able to understand. So they would bring me in, and I would share the teachings with these boys, and it's just amazing how they could latch onto something that just ran through their genes. Just do it again, tell me again. And they wanted to talk, and they wanted answers. And so I think, yeah, sometimes the efforts that we make rub off in areas that we don't realize, and that's special. Yeah, that's special.
It's, yeah, this sort of ancestral or primal remembering, it feels like you're cluing people back into, because what you've
you bet
heard, right? And this is, I mean, I'm very passionate about the shamanic ways because it feels similar. It's like you drum, people journey, and they go, I didn't know I could do that. I go, you dream, don't you? You know, we all do this. But it's, yeah, this remembering feeling. And
Kate, have you ever read Jean Auld, Clan of the Cave Bear Clan? Oh,
I need to. I've heard this title, so I'm writing it down again.
She's absolutely wonderful. And where that takes you is the reality that before Homo sapiens, Neanderthals roamed the earth. And amongst Neanderthals, they walked like we walk today, and they had a number of characteristics that were similar, but they had no vocal cords, so they couldn't talk. And yet they had some innate society. And in their society, there was always a medicine person, and the medicine person was always female. And the reason for that was because genetic memories are passed down through the female gene. So I speak to my grandmothers, not to my grandfathers. I call on them, and I relate to them because of that path. And again, if you read Jean Auld, you'll come to realize they've always been there. And what we have to learn to do is tap into that. You'll hear the Haudenosaunee. By you'd call them Mohawks, or you'd call them Siksika, or you'd call them Seneca, so the Haudenosaunee are 6 nations. And amongst the Haudenosaunee, they've said forever, speak it, whether it's through dream or say it, and then it will happen. It won't happen until you. And then Oprah picked up on that with a book called The Secret. And as she highlighted and she pronounced The Secret, this marvel to the world, I shook my head and I kept saying, Oprah, the Haudenosaunee have been saying that now for 10,000 years. What's wrong with you? Does it have you written in a book? Absolutely. Dream it and it will come. Say it and it will come.
It links back to me also about this great change that a lot of us long for, and this further connection and kindness and love in the world. To speak it and it will come, right? That the more we actually individually stand strong in that charge, the more it grows around us. And that's such a beautiful idea, and something I don't think is commonplace for people to hear about and speak about. And it's one of the reasons I'm so grateful that your voice is joining us at OracleFest. And you have a similar thread with a lot of the folks who are in their more elder years and have like this belief and actually hope. And it's very inspiring to me as I'm 32 and I hear all of you speak with like a reverence. I'm very thankful to say, yes, we can dream a better way. This is possible, because it can feel really defeating, I think, with all the different messages that come at us in a variety of ways, it seems, these days.
Of course. And at 32, you've just begun that voyage, Kate. And that's the fun thing. You've just begun that voyage. God only knows where it will take you.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is that as you have a chance to live and see the world, you'll see societies there that make so much common sense, whose lives and whose societies are built around common sense, and then you'll see others that, what are you thinking? And I don't mind saying that some of the politics of the heavy, the very heavy religious people to the south of us is taking place, and I just shake my head in total disbelief. And yet I have come to realize that when it comes to something as simple as our spiritual beliefs, people believe what they can see, what they can touch. So when I say to folks that we all come from Mother Earth, no one questions that. So I've traveled to China. They call her Mother Earth. In Africa, Mother Earth. India, Mother Earth. Everyone thinks of the Earth as being our mother because they know we come from her. If she weren't there, we wouldn't be here. And when we die, we also know our bodies go back to her. And again, in every religious scripture, it speaks of earth to earth and dust to dust. So when my mom and dad died, they went back to Mother Earth, all but for those that I keep here in my bag close to my heart. So they went back to Mother Earth. We know that. They could see that. No questions asked. Then they also know that in order to live, we needed air. Thus, we say Mother Earth, Father Sky. Societies understand that. No big deal. The power of the sun, we can relate to that. We can see it. The moon, we can understand. Now the stars, that's a little harder. How can people understand when my body went back to Mother Earth? Where did that spark go? Where did that smile that she carried? Where did my mom's smile go? And in my world, I've been lucky enough to be in the garden, saying to my mother, I know where your body is. And I just want you to remind me where you've gone. Where's that smile? The woman used to giggle at night with me, and the woman who, and I reiterated that, and Kate, it was not hard for me to come to understand that she's there. She's there among the stars. And I believe that, I can almost remember being born. I know it'll sound silly, but I think I can remember when I appeared in this fat baby. And there's nothing wrong with feeling that way because it feels so good. I feel that I think that when I die, this body is going to go back to Mother Earth. There's no question about that. But what about that sparkle? What about that me that exists beyond that? And I'm going to go back. I'm going to go there. I'll join my mother and father, my ancestors. And now what kind of world, what kind of entity that will be, I don't know. Do I look forward to it? Well, yes and no. But certainly what it does, it takes the fear out of dying because you know that there's a place for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And to me, it's very reminiscent of a lot of different shared cultures. But you're right. There's a difference between the earth and the practical matter of people being of the earth and going back to the earth compared to our ability to trust and believe in an upper realm, a star space that we go to between lives or after life and holding in that space in some kind of way. I quite love that idea as well, but I suppose we're in similar fields and places in the world that way. I wonder what would make sense to people. But it's often an experience thing, right? You can stand in the garden and have that felt experience, and another person could stand in the garden and say, I don't get it, and walk away, and maybe years down the line, it
will come. That's
they're
right.
at a river and then it clicks.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And we don't have any control over that, but I do feel more and more people are having these clicks and being able to talk about it, which is very freeing, and I'm very, very pleased to see that more conversations are happening for people to be able to say, hey, this is my experience. Hey, me too. Yeah.
And of course, that's an issue that's been going on forever, hasn't it? Just go back hundreds of years, and since the existence of Homo sapiens, that we've had that discussion about is there an afterworld, and each religion. I love getting into a taxi with Sikh people, folks from the Sikh faith, and Hindi people for that matter as well. Their beliefs are so parallel with beliefs of indigenous people, our relationship with the earth and the sky and the sun, and that afterlife. They feel the same way, and whether some of their beliefs are in reincarnation but there's so much of the base is there, and I really, really enjoy talking to these folks. One of the best things that Gandhi has ever written is something called My Experiments with the Truth, and there's another book for you, Kate, if you've not read it. It's just wonderful. And Mahatma Gandhi, who's truly one of the heroes who's lived in almost my lifetime, Gandhi decided one day that he would try various religions. So he said, I'm going to be a Christian for 3 months, and then I'm going to be a Buddhist for 3 months. I'm going to be a Muslim for 3 months, Hindu for 3 months. So he's going to try these various religions. He tried being a Jew for 3 months. And when it was all done, he wrote a book called My Experiments with the Truth. And I was just so...
I've got to read that.
Oh, my. And of course, my being a Christian, having been brought up by oblate priests in southern Saskatchewan, amongst the wind, the rain, the wind, the cold, and the blowing snow and pianos, the Christianity thing excited me or interested me more than any others. Muhammad Gandhi said, I couldn't give it 3 months. It dawned on me after a month that I just couldn't subscribe to an ideology where God will not accept his children, her children, unless they've recognized the birth of Jesus Christ. And Gandhi said, I mean, there's billions of people who never heard of him, never hear of him. And if you're trying to tell me that God, creator, whomever, is going to refuse you because you weren't one of those people who weren't born on that continent, I just can't subscribe to that notion, so I'm out. And he dropped the Christian faith right away. Oh, whoa. Yeah, and I'm not sure about any religion, frankly. I subscribe, I think, to something more wholesome than that, more earthly than that. And thus my book, The Seven Sacred Teachings. And then I wrote a sequel to that called Dreamcatcher and the Seven Deceivers, which is to say that there are forces that encourage us to act otherwise than we know we should. And those are, we call the deceivers as Indigenous people. And then I've written another book, Keith, that I think you'd find very interesting, and it's because of your physical setting. The Haudenosaunee don't subscribe to the notion that the Holy Spirit, or that Nanabushu, or that brought us certain things. They subscribe to the fact that that Creator sent a missionary or someone to try and show us the way. And that person to the Haudenosaunee was called Degandaweda, a peacemaker. And he was born in Lake Ontario around 1300s. And Peacemaker had a number of interesting parallels to Jesus Christ in that he was born to a virgin. Can you imagine the Haudenosaunee talk about a child born to a virgin before Christianity hit the shores? That he had a canoe that was made of stone. Again, can you imagine a civilization in North America talking about some guy on a stone canoe paralleling Jesus is walking on water before Christianity hit the shores? And it goes on and on. And when you see some of the similarities on these beliefs, you wonder how or why, or it brings us all closer together. So I wrote this book called The Great Law. And the Great Law was what Peacemaker brought and gave to the Haudenosaunee, and it's also the element that the United States built their constitution around, the Great Law. They used the Mohawk, the Haudenosaunee values, to build what became the structure of the United States of America. So I thought, well, it's good to know. Yeah.
I so love and appreciate that the way your perspective works is seeking out unity and like combining, hey, where are we agreeing and where are we more similar and where can we all come back to this similar place? Because that to me also feels like bridging this global community, right? That there's an excitement. I can see it in your eyes. There's an excitement in finding and discovering how is it that we all have these similar stories, and how is it that we all have this familiarity, and so it should.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is.
We also, I think, are understanding, although a lot of us aren't prepared to give up the power, that through generations we have become better. We are better people than we were then. I mean, when you talk about some of the transgender things, discussions going on south of the border, that would have never been a conversation 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
Because we're smarter, we're better people than we were. And every generation, we get better. So give us 7 generations, let's see where this takes us. Our youth, the young people, you go into any one of our high schools and listen to them talk about anything. The environment, they're very cautious of what they buy, what they wear. They buy used, they recycle, they don't waste water. That's just environmental issues. When it comes to people issues, they're not judgmental. I mean, the idea of LGBTQ issues is just all over the table. When I watch these kids discuss this, I shake my head and say, why wasn't I allowed to go there when I was young? And these kids are going to make for a better world. They will. And the sooner we turn it over to them, the better. I would lower the voting age right now. They're a better generation than we were. Some of the things that my generation did, I shake my head in disbelief. So the world is getting to be a better world, and I'm hoping that with spirituality it evolves that way as well. That we somehow stop some of these fightings that are stemmed in what people often think of as various religious verifications, and I don't think that's necessarily so. However, in the name of religion, in the name of Allah, it's just so wrong. Yeah.
I was always one of these kids that wanted a lower voting age too. I thought, why do I have to wait so long just to share my voice? I'm here too, aren't I?
No kidding. Oh
So
my.
I so agree with you because I think there's a lot of, especially when you're in an education system, you are around a lot of different ideas and opinions, and you actually feel able to come up with that. And when you get into the world, there's all these other segments socially, and it can be tougher, I think. So if we had more conversations with children about it, I think it would be amazing.
Okay, when you get into the world, they immediately want you to step into a box.
They do.
Oh, are you liberal? Are you conservative? Are you
Yeah, pick a
Republican? Are you
side.
Democrat? And then once
Yeah.
you're there, you have to adhere to their beliefs and to their system, and you have to. It's just so unfortunate. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to be loyal to something that's constantly changing as well. So it's such a ruse even in that respect.
Hey, we were
Um,
talking politics at this time of the morning.
it's
Can you
so
believe
bizarre for
it?
me too. I know.
Yeah. No. But it's. I think it's just an extension thereof, isn't it?
It
And
is.
I think
It
we got
is.
into that from my saying that that this generation is the best generation the world has ever known, and it's getting better and better, and
Yes, of course. We're
they're
constantly
open.
evolving, right?
Oh,
We are always
you
growing.
bet.
Yeah.
So when I speak with students, one of the first things I address is mental health. And I'm able to say that if you look at Stats Canada, they will tell you that 80% of the kids on the floor listening to me now will have someone directly in their life immediate circle who will be struggling with mental health and who will be needing of help. And that didn't exist years ago. That kind of conversation. My wife will say, "Oh, mental health was a similar issue," but I don't think it was. I think social media has opened the doors to stresses and solutions that didn't exist when I was younger, and these kids are open to that. They know that it's a reality, and they'll deal with it a lot better than older folks that say, "Ah, come on, get over it."
Hmm.
What? Just snap out of it. Oh,
If only it were that easy.
it's true. Yeah.
I imagine it's also because of we have a lot more information accessible to us nowadays, and with more information, they say a lot of geniuses, so-called geniuses. Genius is just a spirit that like overtakes. I love this
Yeah.
idea. I love. We can talk about words all day long.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to having more information and knowing more doesn't necessarily make us happier. And to actually be confronted when we were talking about all these other issues, go, actually, the more I learned, the harder it can be to exist and process all of that in one human, very human earthly body and
Yeah.
to try and have enough feelings to match all the information that's coming in. We must be getting to some juxtaposition in that way that's creating more mental distress. I can only think that that's adding to, how many things we have to read and intake and decide upon in a day.
Well, Kate, as we speak today, there were the shooting that took place in Wisconsin 2 days ago, and you wonder what goes through that young woman's mind, or what tips people off to various things, and it may be with an information overload
Mm.
uh, um, that didn't exist otherwise. I mean, yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
still a better place than it was, and it's going to get better.
it
It will get
is.
better.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Now, I know that we have to wrap up our conversation shortly, but I'm sure it's the first of many. I'm very, very excited for you to be a part of Oracle Fest because I know you're probably going to make more than one person cry because it'll be a whole bunch of other sensitive folks sitting listening
You
to
mean a whole
you.
bunch of other a whole bunch of other sucks like me there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. A whole bunch of
Yeah.
mushes.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
did have one little question. I don't know why
Yeah.
it's just calling to me to ask, but you
Yeah.
have these like lovely little figurines all behind you, and knickknacks, and it just seems I don't know something interesting to ask about.
Isn't that a riot? Kate, you know how something touches you in your childhood? And
Hmm.
I can tell you that how many years ago, probably 60, 55 years ago, I went to the school where I was in drama and I was a singer. And backstage, we had some toy soldiers that were this big,
Mm.
wooden toy soldiers. And I was away from home at that time a lot and feeling a little in need. So I used these toy soldiers as a means of dreaming. And believe it or not, as I got older, I started to collect and then I started to paint. So I have a couple thousand toy soldiers in my life, many of which I've personally painted because as I sat there painting them, allowed me to dream. And so I would spend hours and hours painting and dreaming. And thus, if I were to turn the camera on, you'd see that there are lots of those, and most of them are literally little lead toy soldiers that I've built a lot of my life around, and it's super cool.
I knew there'd be a good story behind that. It's just
Yeah,
so endearing to me to ask, so I'm glad I did.
you're, oh, you're sweet. Thanks, sweetie.
Oh, it's my
Okay, Kate. Well, I
pleasure.
guess I'll be talking to you soon.
That's it. Thanks so
Yep,
much. Yeah,
you're
and we'll
very
chat
welcome.
soon.
Let's go have that
Beautiful.
coffee.
Yeah, honestly, it's time.